Have you ever made a mistake so big, you wondered if anyone would still love you? Have you ever felt like running away from your home, your past, even from yourself just to escape the guilt? This is the story of one such boy, and the father who never stopped waiting for his return. In a quiet village surrounded by fields of olive trees and golden wheat, there lived a kind and respected man named Aban. He was a father of two sons, Simon, the eldest, and Levi, the youngest. Simon was steady and responsible, always by his father's side, helping with the vineyard and livestock. Levi, on the other hand, was different. He was filled with wild dreams and a restless spirit. He longed for adventure and freedom, far beyond the quiet rhythms of village life. Every morning, Aban and Simon could be found tending the fields, while Levi sat on hillsides staring at the horizon. His eyes followed the trade caravans and strangers passing through town, imagining a world of riches, music, and excitement. Though his father's love was warm and his home peaceful, Levi's heart beat for something more. One morning, everything changed. Levi made a bold request.
Father, I want my share of the inheritance now. I want to leave and see the world.
Son, are you sure? The world outside is not as kind as you believe.
Father, I need to find my own path.
The news pierced the father's heart like a blade. This wasn't just about money, it felt like a rejection of everything Aban had built and everything he had offered his son. But Aban, with sorrow in his eyes, agreed. Within days, Levi packed his belongings and left. As he walked away, the sun cast long shadows behind him, and his father stood silently by the gates, watching until Levi was just a speck in the distance. Simon returned to the fields, his face tight with confusion and disappointment, while Aban returned to his prayers and his waiting. Levi's journey took him far from home, to places filled with music, light, and laughter. He spent his inheritance quickly lavish meals, fine clothes, loud parties, and new friends. For a while, he lived like a prince. But wealth, once taken for granted, runs dry faster than expected. Soon his coins were gone. The faces that once smiled at him now turned away. A famine swept through the region, and Levi found himself cold, hungry, and alone. The glittering world he chased had vanished, leaving only silence and shame in its place. With no one to turn to, he took the only job he could find feeding pigs in the countryside. There, in the mud and filth, surrounded by grunting animals and the stench of desperation, Levi began to break. His clothes were torn, his body thin, his heart heavy with regret. As he watched the pigs fight over scraps, he longed for their food. For the first time, he remembered his father's Hausenot, just the comfort, but the kindness. Even the servants back home lived better than this.
Even my father's servants eat better than this. What have I done? I'll go home. I'll beg my father to take me back, not as a son, but as a servant.
One morning, with the wind cold against his skin and the last of his pride gone, Levi stood up. He had made up his mind. He would return home not as a son, but as a servant. He would beg his father to take him back in any way, even if it meant living on the outskirts of the estate. His shame was too deep to imagine forgiveness, but still, he hoped. The journey home was long. As Levi walked, his thoughts raced. Would his father even look at him? Would the gates be closed? Would Simon be angry? The fields he once played in now looked unfamiliar. The road, once exciting, now felt endless. But step by step he moved forward. And then, the rooftops appeared. On that same morning, Aben had stepped outside, as he did every day, gazing toward the road his son had vanished down. Years had passed, but not a single day had gone by without him hoping for Levi's return. His beard had grown gray, but his heart still burned with a father's love. Then, far down the path, he saw a figure thin, tired, walking slowly. His eyes squinted, then widened. His heart pounded. Without a word, Aban dropped everything and ran. His feet kicked up dust. His robe flew behind him. The servants watched in amazement as their master once regal and composed like a child. When he reached Levi, he didn't stop to ask questions. He didn't scold. He didn't hesitate. He wrapped his arms around his son and wept. Tears of joy, of relief, of love that had never died. The boy who was lost had come home.
Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I'm not worthy to be called your son.
My son, you were lost, and now you are found.
The household sprang into action. A robe the finest was brought out. A ring was placed on Levi's finger. Sandals were put on his feet. The kitchen prepared a great feast, and music began to play. Servants danced. Lanterns were lit. The entire house came alive with joy. Inside, Levi stood among the crowd, overwhelmed. He had expected rejection, punishment, maybe silence. But what he received was love, overflowing and undeserved. The burden of his guilt began to lift, replaced by tears and quiet gratitude. But outside, in the fields, someone else was watching. Simon heard the music and smelled the roasted calf long before he reached the house. Confused and weary from work, he approached the door suddenly to see Levi, dressed in finery, smiling beside their father. Bitterness filled his heart. Simon had stayed. He had worked, obeyed, and served with loyalty. And yet, there had never been such a celebration for him. As he turned to leave, Aben stepped out to find him. The two stood in the fading light, the music still playing behind them. The father gently reminded Simon that everything he had belonged to him. But his brother, his own flesh and blood, had been lost. And now, he was found. This was not a moment for resentment, but for rejoicing. Slowly, Simon looked back toward the house. His heart wrestled with pride and the pull of family. He had a choice to make. Simon stood outside the house, the soft glow of lanterns flickering behind the windows, casting warm light onto the ground where his feet remained planted. The joyful music floated through the air, but to Simon, it felt distant. His hands were clenched. His breath was shallow. The weight of years of silent service pressed against his chest. He could still see Levi inside clean-shaven now, dressed in the father's finest robe, laughing with servants who once pitied him. Simon felt a mixture of sadness and betrayal. How could Levi's reckless choices be met with such celebration, while his loyalty had gone unnoticed? As he stood in the fading twilight, memories came flooding in. The days when he and Levi ran through the wheat fields. The nights they shared stories under the stars. The times they argued. The time Levi left without saying goodbye. He had hardened himself since then, protecting his heart with silence and duty. But now, they're a crack.
From the doorway, their father watched Simon quietly, understanding the storm within his older son. He didn't speak this time. He simply stood with open hands, letting Simon wrestle with his own heart. Simon looked at the ground, then at the house, then back again. He felt it. This wasn't just about Levi. It was about something deeper, something in him, a need to be seen, to be appreciated, to feel that his quiet obedience mattered. And slowly, in the stillness of that moment, he realized his father's love had never been about comparison. It had always been whole and unwavering. There had been no celebration because there had been no need for rescue, but his place in the Father's heart had never been in question. He took a step toward the house. As Simon crossed the threshold, the noise of the celebration grew louder, but now it no longer sounded foreign. It felt warm, inviting. Inside, Levi spotted him, and for a moment, the room held its breath. Their eyes met. The distance between them had once been miles, but now it was just a few steps. Simon didn't say a word. He simply reached out and placed a hand on Levi's shoulder, a silent gesture, but one full of meaning. Levi's eyes welled up with tears. Their father, standing beside them, smiled through his own tears. At that moment, the family was whole again, not because everything had been fixed, but because love had won. The music resumed, the feast continued, but now the celebration was complete. Later that evening, as the candles burned low and the guests began to leave, Aban sat at the center of the long table, one arm around each of his sons. He looked at them both, no longer as the obedient and the prodigal, but simply as his children. For him, the joy wasn't in the wealth or the work, but in the reunion, in the restoration of hearts. And though many things had changed, one truth remained unshaken. A father's love, deep, wide, and endless, was strong enough to hold even the most broken pieces of a family together. Outside, the stars shimmered above the olive trees. Peace settled over the house, and the father's heart, once heavy with waiting, now rested in quiet joy. And so, the story of the prodigal son echoes across generations, a tale not just of rebellion, but of return, not just of failure, but forgiveness. At its heart, it is a story of a love that never gives up, never lets go, and always waits. Even now, many are walking that same road, lost, ashamed, afraid to return. But the Father still stands by the gate, still watches the horizon, still runs when he sees his child coming home. Have you felt far from home? Are you carrying guilt, shame, regret? Come back. Your heavenly Father waits for you, not with anger, but with love. You are never too far gone. Like a band, God's love is patient, forgiving, and endless. All you have to do is turn around and come home. If this story touched your heart, share it. Someone you know may need to hear that love is waiting. Subscribe to this channel, Divine Bible Adventures, for more stories of hope and faith.